record levels of population growth.
Trudeau's destroyed our entire immigration system.
Continue to pursue our policies of openness.
Okay, I think it's time we have an honest conversation on immigration. I don't want to make this a hyper-partisan issue, but it's important we hold those responsible accountable for their actions. I think it's time in Canada we have an honest discussion on our immigration system, where we look at our past, where we were, where we are today, and the path forward. I want to take this back to 2015 and our system back then. Back then, we had a system that was responsible, that was lawful, that was the envy of the world. Canada was a land of opportunities where you came to this country, you worked hard, you played by the rules, you could achieve that Canadian dream. Fast forward to today. We are seeing an immigration system under Justin Trudeau that is full of corruption, fraud, abuse, and chaos.
Students are graduating from programs that are not particularly valuable in the labor market. Essentially, we're using the international student program as a source for cheap, exploitable, expendable, temporary labor.
If you look at the rate of growth in Canada, just last year, we had a growth rate of over 3%. That is the highest since the 1950s. Sean Fraser, the former immigration minister himself, now housing minister, has admitted to be losing 1 million people. If you wonder if this is sustainable, it's not. We are hearing stories of newcomers lining up at our food banks in record numbers.
We were kind of overwhelmed by how many groups were showing up day after day.
We have heard numerous stories of international students, 25 of them, living in a one-bedroom basement.
So we are just one floor and we are 9 people on that floor. In the basement, it's like 6 people in the basement. So it's like 15 people in just one house, which is crazy.
They're coming to Canada for that hope, and they don't see that hope. Don't take my word for this. Let me tell you what Justin Trudeau himself has said. This is his words. Whether it's the temporary foreign workers or whether it's international students in particular that have grown at a rate far beyond what Canada has been able to absorb. He wants to bring this back under control. And the implication of him saying that he has to bring it under control is that it's out of control right now. If you look at Justin Trudeau and his team for the last 9 years, they've had 5 separate immigration ministers, and then each of them are blaming their predecessors for their government's own failure. Canada's immigration problems go all the way back probably to when Trudeau first took office. But if you're looking for a specific time and date when this actually spiraled out of control, was probably in 2017. If you remember, Justin Trudeau put a tweet out saying everyone is welcome to our country after Donald Trump had just won the election down south. What did that do for Canada? One was the famous Roxham Road border crossing that put immense pressure on our immigration system. It increased backlogs, it increased the cost of processing, and took away resources from lawful immigration to our country. And the costs are being pushed on to our municipalities like Toronto, Montreal, who are asking the federal government for millions and millions of dollars to fund this problem.
They're dragging their heels. We're having to beg them every day for funding for the asylum seekers.
In this video, we're going to be looking at immigration from 3 different perspectives. We're going to be looking at it from a housing viewpoint, we're going to be looking at it from unemployment side of things, and we have to look at it from our integrity of our system.
I got some terrible news today. The average mortgage payment in Canada has now risen to $3,500. I had been saying that housing costs had doubled under Justin Trudeau. It's now far worse than that.
I want you to guess how many houses we have built last year here in Canada. Was it 2 million? Was it 1 million? Maybe 500,000? Nope. Last year, we only built 240,000 homes. That's it, 240,000 homes. Now, when you're losing 1 million temporary residents and you're only building 240,000 homes, that puts a pressure on our housing system. I want to be very, very clear. I am not placing blame on immigrants for our housing crisis our country is facing, but we can't ignore the pressure this rapid growth has on our housing system. Sean Fraser's own officials warned him that his immigration policies were putting pressure on housing, and he ignored their warnings. When you bring in 1.2 million newcomers to this country, but only build a third of the houses, you put pressure on the system. That is simple math. And we're seeing the consequences of that. We have heard numerous stories of international students, 25 of them living in a one-bedroom basement. We're seeing rent double, we've seen mortgage payments double, we've seen the amount needed for a down payment has doubled. Despite Mark Miller announcing a cap on international students, so far in 2024, we have outpaced the growth of permits from last year.
It is unhealthy to link housing to the volume of people that are coming here to seek refuge and asylum.
Growth that we're seeing, it's not fair to newcomers who are coming to Canada for that dream, and it's not fair to Canadians who have been here for generations. Folks, I'm not in the business of agreeing with the Liberals, but in this instance, I think Justin Trudeau is right. We cannot absorb this rate of growth, and there is chaos in our system. On one hand, we have an immigration system that is putting pressure on our housing system when we have a housing crisis. But now let's look at the temporary foreign workers, a program the Liberals have destroyed and gutted. In farming communities like mine, TFWs play an important role in supporting our farmers who produce our food. However, if you look at the low wage stream, since 2015, we have seen a 200% increase in the low wage stream for temporary foreign workers. This is a way for corporations to use cheap labor from outside of Canada to fill jobs at their local Tim Hortons or the gas station around the corner. It is a way for big corporations to suppress the wages of Canadians and find cheap labor from outside the country. In the temporary foreign worker program, we are seeing employers selling labor market impact assessments to potential employees, trying to give them a backdoor entry to our country. And now we see newcomers being forced to work in abusive situations and workplaces.
A scathing UN report calls Canada's temporary foreign worker program a breeding ground for modern-day slavery, claiming they can foster exploitation where employers can control workers' access to housing, healthcare, and their migration status.
We have international students coming to our country for programs that we don't need in schools that don't exist, but instead are working. That's not what this program was created for.
She arrived here being told that there would be in-class instruction, only to discover on her first day of class as she showed up that the entire course would be taught online. And she couldn't understand why she had spent all that money for an online program.
The international student program is so broken where we have colleges like Conestoga College using the program as a cash grab. They're making hundreds of millions of dollars on the backs of international students.
Public colleges and universities, not private ones, are driving the rapid increase in international students across the country.
And this has serious consequences. We have seen a spike in our youth unemployment numbers. The program was never intended to be used this way. This isn't fair to that newcomer or to that Canadian youth. This is just utter chaos.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. There is new information tonight on how Canadian authorities became aware of a father and son who have been accused of being in the advanced stages of planning a terrorist attack in Toronto.
The most important aspect we have to take a look at is the integrity and security of our immigration system. Our immigration system has a fundamental responsibility that those coming to Canada are vetted and cleared by their government officials, that Canadians will remain safe. For example, we had a man who was allowed to enter Canada despite the fact that this individual was in an ISIS video torturing another individual and then was given Canadian citizenship. And now we find out that he was at advanced stages of plotting a terrorist attack in our country. Can you believe that? We didn't catch this guy until mere hours before he was about to commit a terrorist attack in Toronto.
They were charged with having particular weapons. In other words, we're pretty confident how close they were to moving from simply having those tools and then moving on to actioning that threat. I don't want to say imminent as, again, it's within an hour or two, but it was close.
Situations like this undermine the entire immigration system. Our immigration system does not asked for police clearance certificates from temporary residents coming to our country. We cannot say for sure how many terrorists have entered Canada. Mark Miller tried lying about this to the media as well. He was asked by the media, do temporary residents get background checks done? He lied to the media and said, yes.
Generally speaking, if someone were on a student visa, would there be criminal record checks?
Yes.
There would be?
Yeah.
And then how does that process work?
You check them, and if they have a criminal record, they don't come in.
Okay.
Since 2018, police clearance certificates are not mandatory for temporary residents. Either he was lying to Canadians, or he is so incompetent he doesn't understand his own file. At the end of the day, there seems to be a common trend that we're seeing. Each of the government programs are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. When Justin Trudeau came to power in 2015, he inherited a world-class immigration system. A system that brought in the brightest, the best, that when you came to this country, you could buy a home, you'd buy a decent car, work in your dream job. But after that, after his government, it's all gone. We have immigrants telling other immigrants now not to come to Canada because of the rising housing costs, the pressure when it comes to affordability, the crime that they're seeing in our neighborhoods. They're warning them that the country that once was the greatest country in the world no longer exists.
What is the biggest thing you regret in life?
I regret in life? I regret coming to Canada. 20 years here just paying rent and nothing. It tells me Canada is just a trap.
The desperate Liberals who are now struggling in the polls are running around making new announcements on immigration. But even the Bank of Canada doesn't buy it. They don't buy that they'll be able to meet these temporary resident goals that the new Minister of Immigration is setting. If you want integrity in our immigration system, it starts with accountability. And the funny part is that they're blaming each other. They're pointing fingers. It was Fraser's fault, or it was Mark Miller's fault, or it was Menachino's fault.
The international student program in particular has grown just in the last couple of years by hundreds of thousands of people each year. There are some institutions in different parts of this country that I have the sincerely held belief have come to exist just to exploit the program for the personal financial gains of the people behind some of these schools, if we can call them that.
They're not taking ownership for the problems that they have created. That's not leadership. They have broken a world-class immigration system. Think of the type of person that has to uproot their families, pack their bags, sometimes come to a country not knowing anyone, not knowing the climate. Trust me, they don't come here for the weather, but they come here with that hope, that optimism, that entrepreneurial spirit, and the shared values of faith, family, and freedom, so they can succeed and have a better life for themselves and for the next generations. That is what Canada was built on, that entrepreneurial spirit. And this is why we had a world-class immigration system, because it didn't matter where you came from, what language you spoke, what God you worshiped. You came to Canada, you worked hard, you played by the rules, you could achieve that Canadian dream. And under Justin Trudeau and his Liberal ministers, this doesn't exist anymore. And that is heartbreaking. This shouldn't be a controversial conversation. We need an immigration system that is lawful, is responsible, and has integrity, and that one that works for both newcomers and for Canadians. It's time we bring back common sense to our immigration system with lawful, responsible immigration.